So have you ever had an idea that while executing it, you were convinced of its genius? You were so sure that what you were doing was on the right path and that the end of your execution, it would just be glorious. And then when it's done, you realize that actually sucks. If you're a musician, I know you've been down that path, and if you say you haven't, I know you lie. I thought today what I would do is examine one such episode in my creative process and try to be objective about what I made and why it kind of sucks. So if that's interesting to you, stick around. Okay, so let's just kind of go through what it sounds like and talk about what it is exactly that's just not jiving for me. I haven't been real objective about it until this point, so I'm kind of doing this analysis in real time with you. You can share your own thoughts in the comments on anything that I bring up, or feel free to disagree with me, whatever. But let's just start by hearing the main pattern. This is with all parts playing, nothing unmuted or muted. So okay, it's fine. It's competent as a sort of atmospheric drum and bass track. But let's kind of figure out what it is maybe that's missing. All right, here's the main drum part. Kind of interesting from a sound design perspective. That snare is rather unique. I've said it before, one thing about the Elektron Model Cycles is snares are always just a bit wonky on it. There's never really anything that's quite right, in my opinion, but that's just part of what makes this instrument what it is. It sounds like this. Anyway, that drum pattern, it's pretty basic. It's kind of a standard drum and bass drum pattern. I don't love it. It could use a little more pizzazz, but honestly, it's competent. To go along with that, we've got the hats. Those are fine. They're honestly fine. Then I've got this kind of lead thing. It's doing what it's doing because it's got a, let's see, actually no, there we go. It's got this LFO that's randomized on the gate, and then on the chants I've got that set to not quite 100% either, so it sort of has this sporadic in and out quality to it. That sound was completely different the first time I made this track, and I'm still not like totally sure about it. I think it's interesting from like a sound design perspective, but I don't know if it really does anything very meaningful from a music perspective. So yeah, that's definitely a weak part. I'll call that out now. The next track 4 is the bass. Very kind of classic, grimy style drum and bass patch. I'm pretty happy with the sound of it. I think the main problem with this is it's boring. It's just womp, 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 womp. It's very predictable. I don't think I was very inspired when I wrote that. So I would say that the biggest problem with the bass is that it's just sort of repetitive and predictable and not musically very dynamic. I don't think, like, this might work in the middle as sort of a transitional track in a set, but I don't think it's something that you would go out of your way to listen to on its own. Again, my opinion, but it is my music, so I can have it. Then we've got this sound. I think that is probably the single most dynamic thing to the whole track. I think if I were to tear this down and rebuild it, I would probably start with that, and I would probably get away from something that was based on that boring bass line and go, I don't know what the word is, but more compositionally interesting with that sound. So maybe one day I'll come back to this and rework it with using that as sort of the starting point. And then finally, the last track here, track 6, is, for lack of a better term, sort of a Rhodes style chord. Sort of sounds like a slightly detuned honky-tonk piano, and I'm actually pretty happy with that patch as well. I would probably keep that for a rework as well. It's not that unusual or unique. I mean, you hear sounds like that in drum and bass all the time, but that's because those sounds work well in drum and bass. So I'd probably keep that as well. But yeah, ultimately, I think the problem with this is that the bass line just isn't, it's just not. See, I could do just about anything and make it more interesting than what it is now. That's the problem. That's the root of this. That's what everything else is hinging off of, and that's why ultimately it is kind of boring. So, what's the takeaway here? Drum and bass needs good bass. Wow, what an amazing concept. Gee, why didn't I think of that sooner? I will show you there's a B part to this pattern that's kind of minimal, but in some ways more interesting than the rest of it. I'll just play it. Anyway, not drastically different than the main melody and stuff, but anyway, yeah, I think the reason this track sucks is because it's boring. It's because the bass is boring. So maybe I'll just rebuild it with completely different melodic and chord structure, different bass progression, and maybe it'll be more interesting. Or it might still be boring, and that might be interesting to re-examine then and try to figure out why, even after recomposing the whole thing, it's still boring. So that's what I got. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I am going to go ahead and just put the recording that I made with this stuff. It includes this Chaos pad as well at the end of the video here, so if you want to hear the jam, it's there. But otherwise, thank you for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.